Hello, welcome to Recentered, episode 9. My name is Gary from the YouTube channel Immersed Robot, and joining me as always is Rog, also known as Flute Rogie, and we'll be talking about VR related stuff for the next hour and a half or so. We'll see how we go. But Rog, how are you? What have you been up to this past week, and what VR stuff have you been playing?
Evening. Just feeling a bit so-and-so at the moment, a bit under the weather, but yeah. Apart from that, same old.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been sort of a bit of a PSVR week for me. Because unusually, there was actually a new PSVR game that dropped a couple of weeks ago called, Dropship Commander. And it's basically Lunar Lander or Thrust, those sort of games.
Yeah.
Get your ship, land it on a planet, score points. It really is sort of Lunar Lander more than anything else, because that's basically all you have to do. There's different difficulty, like landing pads and etc. With a few astronauts you can pick up to rescue, but it's basically fly over the landscape, find the most difficult ones for the highest points, and land on it. And if you go all the way back to our very first episode, anybody who's listened to that will probably realise I'm partial to a bit of a good old Lunar Lander game.
Yeah,
It's picked Lunar Flight as one of my top 3 VR games.
Yeah. Is this only on PSVR then? Because I'm looking at the trailer now and it looks pretty good actually. I quite like this. Is this not available on Steam or anything? Or
not that I know. You can get the flat version. It's on PS4 and PS5. But if you do want to play it in VR, you do need to download the PS4 version. The PS5 version doesn't support VR, but from what's been said, it seems like once PSVR 2 comes out, the PS5 version will support PSVR 2.
Right. Okay.
Now, I mean, overall, it's a bit of a difficult one to recommend. In all honesty, I've probably put 5 or 6 hours into it. It became sort of this week my listen to a podcast sort of game. So put that on, listen to a podcast and play away. But it's fine. It's definitely an indie game. It's got one of the most annoying sound effects I've ever heard in a video game, which sounds like deep bass tinnitus is the only way I can describe it.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Oh dear.
Honestly, you have to turn it down. And also, it's got to win an award for the most ridiculous comfort setting that is turned on by default. It's like it puts blinders. I can't even call them blinders. It narrows your vision down to a small circle as default. I mean, you can turn this off, obviously.
Yeah.
But as default, it narrows it down to such a small thing. It started the first sort of level and telling you here's a land on the pad sort of thing, and it was just like this small circle, which it couldn't have been bigger than a £2 coin. It's circling my ship, right? And I'm thinking, it's just highlighting the ship, telling me here's your, No, that's the comfort option. It's like,
oh my god,
utterly ridiculous.
Sounds like a difficulty option as well. Because
you literally couldn't see anything of the landscape or where you were going. It was bananas.
Yeah.
Even if you look around, you've got like this tiny little circle to look through.
Yeah.
But that's.
I was because I'm just, like I say, I'm looking at the trailer and it's one that, because I always like Thrust. I always like Thrust 2. I always played those quite a bit. I always enjoyed those, and there's something like quite addictive. It's that Asteroids kind of feel as well, isn't it? Because it's all the same stuff where you've got this inertial, this momentum and stuff like that as you're playing. And Lunar Lander is an addictive game, so I guess this is addictive, but it does look, it does what it says, I suppose. I mean, that's what it is. That's the kind of game it is. So it does it, and if it does it well enough, then that's all you can hope for. But I'd look at getting this if I could get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. Like I say, it's definitely indie. I could name any point about a video, any point about the game, whether it's graphics, sound, anything, and there's a criticism to be had there. There's so many things what could just make it feel a bit more of a labour of love rather than just an indie game.
Yeah,
there's some bizarre, there's the odd bizarre decision what's made. Like on one of the planets, you're underground, and there's like these mine carts, anti-gravity mine carts. Yeah,
right.
But for some reason, these anti-gravity mine carts have to suddenly tilt themselves on an angle if they're going up a diagonal passageway. I'm thinking, well, why would that be a thing?
Yeah.
If you've got an anti-gravity thing, it'd stay level. But the thing what really annoyed me is these things don't just transition. And it's all 3D models, so I don't know why it does it. It doesn't transition from being horizontal to sort of like a 45-degree angle to go up the tunnel. It just flicks. It's like instantly. There's no rotation or anything. I'm thinking, what is this? It's like, these aren't pre-drawn sprites and you've got limited memory. Why does it even do that?
Yeah.
But, I think with these sort of games, though, I like them I like the sort of technicality of them and, you're constantly judging your ship.
Yeah.
You don't get, you can't sort of think about something else. You're constantly monitoring, your thrust, the angle, the drift, everything, and so you can get fairly absorbed. So, £6.50. It's like I've definitely had £6 worth out of it easily. So I'll throw away the 49p.
yeah, that's okay. I mean, I'd be interested in it, but I'll have to check it out if it comes out on Steam or something like that. But
yeah,
I think as well, to be honest, it's probably priced a little bit higher than I would like it to be just for something like this. But
they should have licensed the Rob Hubbard soundtrack for Thrust, though. I mean, there's like a music slider volume option on it, and it just seems to turn down some background sound effects. Maybe there's no music, so I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, a bit odd. What else have you been playing this past week anyway? Catching up on the PSVR stuff anyway.
Oh, yeah. Having my PSVR plugged in, I sort of went through my back catalogue and I sort of dove into Tiny Trax, which is basically a cartoony slot car scale X tricks type racing game. Looking on the trophy list, I last played this in 2019, and I must have played it for like 30 minutes and then never went back to it.
Right.
I think back then I was of the opinion of this is just a bit too blurry for me. But now going back and playing it again, it's like, it's a soft image, but I really had a good time with it. I really enjoyed it. I don't know what price it goes for these days. As I say, I think I probably bought it on a sale back then at some point. But yeah, you've got accelerate and you've got steering and then change lane and that's it. That's as complicated as it gets. The skill comes in. You've got to hold your angle around the corners at a very specific angle. And if you do that, you've also got a boost button. And if you can hold the angle right, it fills up your boost gauge.
Right.
Or if you're going round a curve while holding boost, it won't deplete your boost gauge. So you've got this trade-off of, do I want to hold the boost there, what I've got, and use it around the corner, or do I want to fill my boost gauge back up again? And it's got some really nice levels in it. It looks all right. It's a nice looking game. It plays well, and again, it became a bit of a podcast sort of game.
Yeah. I just checked. It's £12.99 over here in the UK at the minute. So it doesn't seem unreasonable. Have you ever played that Mini Motor Racing on the Quest?
Yes.
Yeah.
It wasn't on Quest. I played it on Steam, I think. I've got a bit of a soft spot for sort of like toy car racing games.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. Yeah.
I quite liked it. I quite like that as well. I mean, Tiny Trax looks quite a bit faster than that though. As you pelt around the track. But Mini Motor Racing I enjoyed it for what it was. Quite basic. There weren't a lot to it, but it looked pretty good.
It was fine. They added a first-person mode to that as well, didn't they? Which was horrifically hard.
Yeah, and I didn't like that. I don't like the first-person view.
It was much better from the third-person view, definitely.
Yeah, and you can alter your position around the track. And I think there might be like a third person following the car around it as well, from memory. But I've not played it in a while. But yeah,
that's right. Now you say that, yes, and that's how I played it. Thinking about it.
Yeah.
It was just easier to judge the corners.
Yeah. So I heard of Tiny Trax and I never jumped in, so I don't know, how it compares to that or anything. But
I'd say, would you say £12 at the moment?
Yes, £12.99. Yeah.
I'd pay for that for it easy.
Yeah, nice.
That's one, but anything again, Super Sprint style as well. Good old Super Sprint.
Yes, yeah. We can't stop talking about retro stuff on this, can we?
It's a weakness.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. What else on PSVR then? You've got one more down here. It looks like.
Yeah, Transference, which again I think I must have picked up in a sale and never got round to playing. There is a prelude to it called the Walter Test Case, I think it is, which you can play for free, which only works on PS4. Apparently, it doesn't work on PS5, although the full game of Transference does work on PS5.
Right. Okay.
And this
I
is
didn't know
like-
about that one actually. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
I think I played the demo of Transference before I played through the full game.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's fine. It's like a find out what's happened to this mad, well, say pretty much mad scientist type guy who seems to have transferred himself and his family from the real world into like a virtual environment, and it's all gone a bit wrong.
Yeah.
It's portrayed as, well, I suppose it is a horror sort of horror game, which I think was probably the reason I didn't find it massively compelling, because I've said it before, horror games really don't have an effect on me unless it's in isolation. You're just not gonna, you're not really gonna get me that well with a jump scare.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all right. It was interesting enough. It probably took me an hour longer than it should have done, because it's a short game, maybe an hour and a half, 2.5 hours, I don't know, something like that. It probably took me 3 because I got ridiculously stuck on 2 puzzles, which I absolutely shouldn't have done. It was a case of just overthinking what the obvious solution was.
Yeah.
And the obvious solution, well, it was a lot easier than the solution that I kept coming up with. But it's okay.
I played. I think I played. Do you know what? Now I've said that, I don't know if I actually finished this game or not. But I played it, quite a lot of it, at least an hour and a half. Probably longer than that, really. When it first came out, so I must have been close to the end anyway, I would imagine, because I didn't feel like I was like. I was held up a couple of times. There are a few puzzles that held me up from memory, but I remember quite liking it. I don't think it blew me away or anything like that. This is like the Elijah Wood thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
He had some involvement in this, or his film company had some involvement in it, and it was pretty good from memory. But it's been a long time, honestly, since I played this one.
I think I might have enjoyed it if I'd have played it when it first came out. I think I'd have enjoyed it more, but having seen more out of VR now, it's I think it's probably lost something. But again, not bad. I don't know how much that is either. Again, I must have bought it in a sale a few years ago now, but you can get it on Steam as well, I think. But
yes, you can.
I think the Walter Test Case is only available on PSVR. Right.
Okay. Yeah. Transference. That's another one to check out if you like puzzles, because it's a puzzle game primarily, and it's horror, but I think it's sort of horror light. This one, it's not. There might be a few jump scares in there and stuff, but it's mainly around the puzzles, isn't it? I think.
Yeah. It tries to rush this sort of digital red-eyed looking creature at you. It throws that at you a few times to try and make you jump, but that's really it. Apart from that, it's the atmosphere. It's quite dark in places.
Yeah. Okay. You've got one more. What's the other one?
Oh yes, the only thing I think I picked up on the Oculus sale, which this is definitely quadruple dipping for me, because I've picked up yet again Rez Infinite, which I really love that game. I think I've had it now on probably PS2, PSVR, Steam, and now on Quest. And I think that was like £7.50. So at that price, I couldn't really resist it.
Yeah, it's this is one I've played through. I'm pretty sure I've played all the levels on this one. But of course, it's got that last Area X, isn't it? The one that was designed for VR, and I think that was the best bit. Yeah,
it's the one everybody seems to rave over. Although, in all honesty, apart from probably levels 1 to 4, I prefer the original levels to Area X for some reason. It became a bit too abstract and a bit too. Everything was done with just basically points. Everything was basically was defined by points of just pixels basically.
Yes. Yeah.
Rather than actual geometry. Which, although saying that, I mean, a lot of Rez itself is more vector art more than anything. But yeah, it's one of those games. Some people just don't like it. They just don't get it. But if it's one of those also that if you loved it the first time round, you'd probably still go back to it and play it every now and again.
Yeah, I've got no nostalgia for it at all. That's the thing. I never played it back in the day or anything like that. And I thought it was okay, but I did feel, honestly, out of all of them, the one that stood out to me was Area X, because it's, I think because you got a bit more freedom with that one and stuff. But yeah, I think if you were a big fan of the original, like you say, maybe it impacts you a bit more.
It's just the way the graphics feed in with the music and the sound. And it's one of those where you really do want to turn the volume up. And I did play this back on the Rift with a butt kicker plugged in as well, and that was just amazing.
Yeah, that would make a difference. Yeah. Have you still got your butt kicker then? Have you still?
Yeah.
I want one of those for Elite Dangerous, but they're too expensive. They're like £300, I think, something like that.
What?
From what I've seen,
Wow.
I've gone on eBay every now and again and just had a quick look at them, and that's the last time I looked from memory. That's the figure that sticks out to me, around £300. But
I bought mine years and years ago now, and I think I paid about $150 for it. But I remember at the time I had to wait about 2 or 3 months because they were scarce.
Yeah,
and they were really difficult to get hold of. So maybe again, if they're hard to get hold of, maybe that's bumped the price up.
Yeah, I think the value, those ones. It's a bit like the X Arcade sticks. You know those X Arcade sticks?
Oh yeah.
That's what I've got in my arcade cabinet, and I got that second hand, and I got quite a good deal on it. But if you even refurbish units from the official website, because they've never got them in stock, and even if they have, the refurbished units are like £250 at least. So yeah. Okay, well, I have been playing a few different things. Not a lot, honestly, this week. I've sort of jumped in and out of some of the titles that we'll be talking about in a moment, and then I've also picked up a couple as well. The first one, wasn't actually in the sale, but I decided, because there was an Oculus, Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale as well, and I was looking through that list and I was thinking about picking up various things, but nothing really stood out to me. But instead, I decided to pick up Cities VR, because I did get a referral link from Sean from Rendered Reality, so I thought I might as well pick that up, 25% off. So it's been one that I've looked at for a long time, and I've come close to picking it up for, since it's released, really. And I've always, I've liked city builders, but I've not really played them for so many years. And when I say I like city builders, what I mean is I like SimCity. I like SimCity and SimCity 2000. Those are the ones where I put a lot of time into, and really haven't touched a lot since. I've definitely not played any Cities Skylines, although, again, that's another one that I've thought about picking up from time to time. So, of course, Cities Skylines, but in VR, was something that I was looking into. And it's, I've only played a little bit of it so far. So I've worked my way through. The tutorial is a little bit, it takes you through a lot of different aspects. So it takes a while actually to go through the tutorial. So I think I'm still sort of working my way through that, although it does open up and give you a little bit more freedom. And the first thing that stood out to me with this one is it's just it's on a mobile VR headset. The graphics have definitely been toned down to the point of it doesn't look great. And I described to you when we were talking earlier on this week or over the weekend, where the landscape itself and stuff, you open up something in Unity and just have a general random landscape, and that's what it looks like when you first go into this game. It's a little bit of a letdown, but at the same time, they're preparing it to expand to this huge city. So you can understand why they've cut corners on the graphics and stuff like that, because it's on a mobile platform and it needs to cope with all of the processing that goes into it once you've built up and expanded your city out. When you start out, it doesn't look great, and when you just got a few buildings and stuff and you're starting out your city, it doesn't look great. But I would imagine that once you've expanded it out to the point of where you've been playing it for a few hours, it would be a little bit more impressive, and you would understand why the graphics just don't look that great. And like the resolution and stuff, it looks similar to like Walkabout Mini Golf in terms of resolution. So that was one of the things that I thought some people had said on the reviews, that it looked a little bit pixely and stuff like that. I didn't feel like it was too bad in terms of like resolution scaling and stuff, and it looked pretty fine really for a Quest title. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into it a little bit more, because it has actually got me. I think it's got me, and I would like to expand it. Part of the attraction of these games is just to expand the city to the point of where it's huge and you can sort of take a step back and look back on it. So yeah, I'm waiting to get to that point, but first impressions are not bad at all. I'm quite impressed with it, really.
Yeah, I think my city building sort of gameplay sort of started on the Amiga with SimCity and it pretty much ended there as well. I've never really been into those sort of games just for the sake of building a city. If it's maybe part of something else as a means to an end, fine. But as far as city building games go, I've never really got into them.
Yeah, maybe you got to be, you got to be a certain kind of person that just is drawn to that kind of thing of just expanding it out. It's one of the things. It's like when you had all these sim games, and then you had things like Theme Hospital. I found it difficult to get into Theme Hospital because it was level based. It wasn't like expanding the hospital out, to ridiculous levels, which is what you could do with SimCity. You could make a massive metropolis starting from just a few small things, and that is the part that appealed to me. That was the addictive nature of it, really. Anything that's level based didn't really get me in the same way, to be honest.
Well, that's the opposite for me, because stuff like Theme Hospital or going back to Theme Park even, I love those, but what I liked was having an objective, something to work towards, and then finishing that and then going on to the next one and going on to the next challenge. Just having something there just for the free form sort of nature of it. Not my sort of thing, generally speaking.
No. But yeah, I like it, and I'll keep playing. I hope to report back. It depends, if it grabs me, and I will report back. If it doesn't, then you might not hear of it again on this podcast. But we'll see about that.
Yeah, have you played the other one? Is it Little Cities?
Yeah, I felt, again, I've not played that one, but from the reviews, it seemed like that was a bit more of a casual experience where less sort of gameplay involved, because Cities VR it is quite in depth in places. It's not a short thing to learn how to play, whereas Little Cities, I believe, is a little bit of a more casual kind of experience. I could be wrong on that, but because I've not played it, but that's what my impression is.
Yeah.
What else? So another quick mention for Sean from Rendered Reality. He very kindly gifted me Among Us VR. I was just talking to him one night about it, because I was almost certainly going to pick it up at some point, either this week or next week anyway. And he very kindly gifted me a copy. So I've just jumped in, done the tutorial, played one match, just a random match, with random people. So it wasn't the best first impressions with that. It's not. And I understand. I was expecting that anyway. So I just need to spend a bit more time getting on Discord and arranging to play with you guys, I guess, because
you definitely need to. You absolutely need to. I was playing over the weekend with a few people off the Reality Discord, the Bluebell and Artful, VR Spry guy, and some other people who'd been invited in as well, and we just had just had a brilliant couple of hours playing it. It's such a funny game. I mean, I got dumped with being the imposter for the first 3 games, and the first nobody voted me out. I don't know if I'm getting good at lying or what, but the first 2 games I won, and then the third game that I managed to sort of weasel my way out to being voted out at one point. Although the others won because they managed to fix all the bits on the ship. But yeah, it's you get in with a good group of people, and it's one of the funniest games ever. And I can still see it. I literally can still see the image in my head where a game later on I was the imposter, and I think it was a guy called Ryan. It might have been. And we'd got we were the imposters, and there was one person stood next to us, and I sort of gestured, and he went over and killed them. And we turn around, and VR Spry guy stood there having just witnessed a murder, and I don't know if he knew or not which of us had killed them, and he's thinking, is the other person going to report the body or what? And we both just advanced on him. And instead of turning and running, he sort of backed away. So I just run straight up to him, killed him, and then that was enough. That was actually enough of them wiped out to win the game. It was just this funny moment. It's just great.
That's the thing. That's the thing. If it's that aspect of it, because even just playing through the tutorial and that little quick game that I play with other people, you definitely get a sense of that anyway. But yeah, Rog is a good liar, it seems, if that is your real name.
Who knows? But I've got to shout out Mac in VR as well, who was streaming it and asking for people to jump in. I jumped in his game for about an hour, and there was a funny moment on that. I walked round the corner and he went, ah! And he sort of screamed as I just unexpectedly bumped into each other. And that made me chuckle. And I don't know what happened. And if I got turned around, because we've gone around opposite parts of this corner, I think I got turned around, and I don't know if he turned around. Then we sort of walked back past each other again, and I screamed. It was like ridiculous. I think it's like the first time in VR something has like literally made me sort of properly scream. It was funny because it was unexpected. Horror games can't do this. But
Among Us can.
Yeah, sort of like accidental jump scare. Brilliant.
It's that aspect of it. I think just getting in with other people, and I've not, because like you, when you were first describing this, I was like, I still wasn't sure if it was for me, but I can definitely get a sense of that. And the amount that people have been playing this and talking about it, it's got to make everybody just want to give it a try and just see what it's like. So the other thing, just quickly to mention on this, in the tutorial in the game that I played, is something that you mentioned previously as well. The performance is not fantastic in this, but in these sort of multiplayer games, it almost doesn't matter. You're so distracted with other things, I think.
It's not about interacting with you've got to sort of like interact with the I say puzzles, the tasks. You've got to interact with those, but it's not about interacting with the world. It's about talking to the other people. So, I still don't know why I can forgive that game. Maybe it's because of that. It's just, I should be slating it. I really should be slating it for the performance. But yeah, I can look past it.
Yeah, if you're having fun, you're having fun, aren't you?
Yeah.
So the other thing I'll quickly mention, won't stay on this too long, is I've also been jumping back into Elite Dangerous without my index. So I've not got my index anymore, as we know, and so I've been using the Quest. I've been trying to get back into just using it for Airlink, and I've also tried Elite Dangerous with the wired link as well. I've done this before in the past just to really test it. I've not really played a lot of Elite Dangerous with the wired link.
Right.
But you do notice it. I mean, one interesting thing that somebody said in one of our comments on our last video, it might have been our last podcast. They were talking. I think they were talking about the fact that, like in big open world games and stuff like that, where you've got more of a scope, more of a distance, you notice the video compression more, and that's not something that I've actually, without them, mentioning it, it's not something I've really thought about, but it's true, and I think it is true with certain titles, and you do notice video compression. One of the examples I always go back to is Skyrim. If I'm playing on Airlink, most of the time it's fine, but if you are looking into the distance, I think the video compression does make more of an impact on you in those sections where you're looking into the distance and more stuff's going on. But I don't know. Yeah, what do you think of that, Rog?
I keep meaning to do this. One of the very first games I ever played using Airlink was Westworld. And I was my save game was in a really dark area, and you could see the sort of like dark grey and sort of black, almost like it looked like MPEG compression. It was really bad, and I keep meaning to go back into that to test it to see how it's come along. Because as I keep saying, I'm sure it's just so much better now than it was at the beginning, and with wired link as well. So I keep meaning to go back to that as a test, because that for me was blatantly noticeable. The compression and the encoding was just clear as day. So I'd be interested to see if that would, see if that's cleared up any, see if I can still actually notice it. In
the dark scenes on certain games and stuff like that, that's where you'll really notice the compression. I do notice it sometimes in Half-Life Alyx, for example.
Yeah.
But there's also, there's that side of it, there's the video compression from that side of it, but then there's also just this general sheen over everything, no matter what you're playing, or that just video kind of feed, that video encoding sheen, which is only noticeable, like I mentioned last time, when you go backwards and forwards between a native feed and then a Quest 2 or something like that. And that's there even on, wide link and stuff. But one thing I noticed in Elite Dangerous was when I was going between Airlink and Widelink is that I did notice there was a degradation in quality with Airlink, which it's not really that bad. It's not enough to get too worried about, but it's just there, and it is there. There's no doubt about it. And again, I'm playing on a pretty good it's not a great router, but it's dedicated just to the Quest. And I do play on a Wi-Fi 6 router, which is also dedicated to the Airlink in my house sometimes. Because what you can do if you play on Quest 2 Elite Dangerous, if you launch it through the Oculus app, then you can also play with the motion controllers, the Oculus Touch controllers as well. So I can just sit in my living room and play a little bit of Elite Dangerous with that. It's not sort of hand presence or anything like that. They basically work like a gamepad, but it's good enough just for a quick session in Elite Dangerous as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do notice a difference between Widelink and Airlink in certain situations. I think on the whole, most of the time it's fine. And like playing Walkabout Mini Golf with Airlink, just a fantastic experience. It looks so sharp. So there's something to be said for that. So the other thing is that I've had to send my Steam Deck in. It's not VR related, so again, I won't stay on this for too long, but I've had to RMA my Steam Deck for anybody that's interested. It was to do with battery issues. It was just running down to about 50% at normal rate, and then all of a sudden it would sort of rapidly lose charge as I was almost doing nothing. It was just in sort of the home screen really. So I did a few tests with Valve. They said send it back, so I've not got a Steam Deck at the minute. Just for anyone interested, probably only Simplex if he's watching this. But yeah, just wanted to make people aware of that. And I'll probably report back when I get my new one, because as much as I like VR, I also like my Steam Deck as well. So that's that.
Hopefully they won't take too long.
No, hope not. Yeah, even not, because this is you get worried sometimes. I get worried when I've RMA'd stuff to Valve and they've not acknowledged receipt of it.
Yeah.
So it's been like 3 or 4 days now, and they've not acknowledged receipt. I can see that they've received it, but they've not sent me any updates on it yet. So there's just this period of waiting and
good old Valve time.
Yeah. Okay, so we can get on to a few topics that we've got. We've got a couple of games to discuss briefly. I don't think we'll spend too long on either of these, honestly, because we've not spent that much time in them. But it's probably worth touching on. The first one is Espire 2. Rog, why don't you take us through this? What do you think?
Not massively impressed, in all honesty. For anybody, I imagine most people, if you've got a Quest, you know what it's about. Follow up to the original one. But you can play multiplayer. You've got 2 robot frames which you are remotely piloting. Is it Sooty and Cinder springs to mind? I think maybe the names, I can't remember. One's a large sort of humanoid-sized robot. The other one's a small little robot who's more geared towards stealth. In the single player mode, I'm not sure if you pilot this small one or not. I've not got far enough, so I've absolutely no idea. But I think it tries to make itself sort of feel like a Metal Gear game. That's the sort of general feeling I get that they're going for.
Yeah,
but it never gets there. And it's a stealth game. It's a stealth game, but it gives you weapons. It lets you pick weapons up off guards you've defeated. Sometimes you get like a crate with some weapons in or whatever. The tutorial goes and tells you how to use all the weapons and everything, and then turns around at the end of it and says, "But you'll be penalised score-wise if you use that. If you don't use sort of stealth." And it's like, why do all of this? If you want this to be a stealth game, make it a stealth game. Don't let me use all this stuff. Or alternatively, make it like a shooter, but with the stealth as an optional section. It just feels confused. It's annoying. It always feels like it wants you to play it the way it was designed. It's like the way you can sort of. I mean, we played the multiplayer side of it, and we kept triggering, sort of spawning waves of guards in again and again and again, and it's like, yeah, okay, it obviously wants us to be more stealthy than we were capable of.
Yeah. Well, in that co-op section, we weren't really going for stealth in that, were we? I think for a lot of it. I think part of the attraction of stealth games sometimes is stealth games like this, and like Metal Gear Solid and other ones which I mentioned to you actually when we were playing, things like Thief, which I'm a big fan of, that original Thief game. I think it's the level of freedom that they offer in attacking it from a different, like attacking the levels in different ways. It's like a Hitman kind of thing. You have a level of freedom in how you want to take this particular level on, and when it's directing you so clearly in one path that will give you the most points, I think it sort of has an aspect where it takes you out of it in some ways, because as long as you're doing the objectives, it probably I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it almost makes the game more enjoyable, because it gives you more agency in the sense that you can attack this from a multitude of different ways. None of them is right. You have the option to make whichever one you want work, and that's what I've always liked about these games. So yeah, I mean, I sort of agree with you that them directing you into sort of getting more points, more money, and that kind of stuff by doing it in the specific way they want, it almost takes you out of it. But that's their design choice, I suppose. They can do what they want. It just doesn't feel quite as good to play as certain other games that I mentioned. And I'm a big fan of stealth games. It turns out I like the original Thief. The original Thief came out like in 97, was it 98, something like that,
something
on PC.
Like that, yeah.
And it was one that I'd never played a game like that. I never played the original Metal Gear Solid. I never had a PlayStation back in the 90s, so I didn't play it till years later. And even then, I didn't play too much of it. But for a stealth game, Thief was just the sort of the high bar for me, and it always was. And there's a VR game which is sort of based on it loosely called Unnightly, just quickly to mention, because I think that's a very good game. It's very indie. It's not perfect, but it does sort of Thief in a really good way. So I don't know if people who have like more of a history with Metal Gear Solid would like this more, but you've mentioned, it's really not doing it in the best way possible for that, I suppose. I don't know. Did you? Because it sounds like you played quite a bit of Metal Gear Solid. Did you?
I played and finished the first two games.
Okay.
Did I play? Oh, good grief! I always end up getting them mixed up. That's pretty much it. I enjoyed the first two because I played the first two back to back. I remember when the second one was being released. I thought, I've never played the first one. So I played that and then literally finished the first one and went straight into the second, which was, I mean, technically amazing at the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, everybody was talking about that originally, and that's clearly where they've taken the inspiration from. And it's not just clearly. I think they've directly said it. It's sort of inspired by Metal Gear Solid, which you can see to a certain extent. And I don't want to give some of my impressions. I think it's quite, in a lot of ways, it's quite serviceable. When we played multiplayer like co-op through that level, it was fine, and there wasn't a lot of jank necessarily. Nothing particularly looked great, or nothing excelled. I think that's the thing as well. It didn't excel in any particular area, but it was still fun to waste 20 minutes in that level. I certainly didn't have a bad time in it, but maybe we need to play more. We've still not played a lot of this, so maybe we need to give it a bit more time.
I mean, possibly, but I mean, going back to me being picky, I think I pointed out during the time we were playing it, I'd climbed up to the top of a building and there was a big tank, like water tank or container or something, which had one of the worst textures on it I think I've ever seen in VR.
Yeah.
I mean, it must have been like an 8x8 pixel texture stretched out on this thing. It looked terrible. Like, oh, come on, really?
There's the AI as well. There are a few issues with the AI that we noticed when we were playing this in co-op. I don't know if because I think at one point there was just a guy that just ran straight past you, wasn't there? There wasn't.
Yeah, he climbed up a ladder on top of like the crate or whatever I was on, and then just walked straight past me, and off he went on his way.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe a bit of work to do, but yeah. Once again, I've played maybe an hour, if that, on my own, and then we played through that co-op mission together. So that's the context behind what we're saying here. Maybe there's more to it, and so yeah. don't want to be too unfair with it.
Yeah, it feels like it could do with a PC version, though. Just a nicer looking, flawlessly running PC version. I think that'd add a lot.
Yeah, I don't want to be the podcast where we moan about performance constantly on Quest games. But yeah, there's a few hiccups. It's not that bad. It's not that bad really. But there was a few hiccups in like the tutorial section. And what I noticed as well, I don't know if you turned off, the HUD where you've got those lines that stick out as you're working your way through. I found, because you can disable those, so I found turning those off just made it a lot better, because otherwise they do sort of stutter as you're moving around certain sections and stuff. And when you've got a HUD that does that, it's more distracting, I think, than...
Yeah, because it's something what's closer in 3D space, and anything closer there, you get any reprojection or anything, it's immediately noticeable. I mean, Iron Man was a prime example of that.
Yeah.
If any reprojection happened, it was always in the HUD. You could see it happening. Really distracting.
Yeah. And I say we don't want to be the podcast that talks about performance issues all the time, but this one we are really not going to spend a lot of time on because it's not fair to, but it's just quickly worth mentioning. Cave Digger 2, we got keys for, and they've had an update. So they had an update the last week, which added a few different modes and stuff in there. But the reason we're not going to get into this too much is because we just couldn't really play too much. This is an App Lab game, so it's not on the official Quest store. And the performance was just, ridiculous, really. It was really bad. We're both playing on Quest 2s, and it's the worst performing game I think I've played, App Lab or otherwise, so far. And I remember, because you played this first and you sent me a message on Discord complaining, and I thought... it can't be that bad. But it was worse, honestly. So we're not going to talk about the game, and hopefully they'll have an update. But what are your thoughts on this, Rog?
Yeah. I mean, we can't talk about what the game's like because this literally was unplayable for me. This is not just a case of, there's a few frames dropping here and there. This is the worst running VR game that you pay money for that I've ever seen. It's that bad. Okay, it's on App Lab, but they're charging money for it.
Yeah.
And again, going back to what Anthony used to say, if you're charging money for it, you need to, you've got to be ready to be open to criticism. This is nowhere near good enough. This is poor. It shouldn't even be on there. I don't care whether it's on App Lab or not. This should not be available for purchase in the state it's in. You start off and you're in the cave. You're going through the tutorial, and it's just it's sluggish. You can see. I say it's not a case of seeing it dropping frames. It's a case of seeing it running slow. It's really bad. And then you get into the lift section, you get up to the top, and that's even worse. Then when you get back into the lift to crank the handle to go back down into the caves, the performance drops that much, the sound can't keep up, and it breaks up, and there's static in the sound because everything's running so slow, nothing can keep going properly. It shouldn't be for sale. Yeah,
it's I did, just out of fairness as well, I did contact, so I don't think it was one of the developers, but the PR contact that sent us the keys, I did contact them before we did this episode, just to say we can't really review it, and I just wanted to let you know about the performance issues before we mention it on the podcast. They advised that I submit it through the feedback section in the menu in game, so I did that. I sent a feedback form through to the developers. I've not received anything back from that yet, so I'll wait to hear about the performance, but hopefully they'll have an update. But it's really the thing that blows my mind, because I'm looking at the reviews on App Lab, and I don't understand it, because it's getting 5-star reviews, and a few people do mention the stutters. If you read a few of the reviews, a few people will mention it, but they don't dwell on it or think it's that much of a problem. It seems and again, we've spoken about performance on certain other games on this podcast. This is in a completely different level to that. First of all, this is not like that. So I just don't, because when I contacted this PR person, they said it shouldn't be like that, and if you're having this problem, when you do have this problem, send the feedback form in, and it will automatically send a log through to the developers, which is a great system to have. I appreciate that. The thing is, it's happening all the time. It's not when it happens, it's happening all the time.
This isn't like sort of Iron Man or anything else where there's like intermittent problems. This is a game that runs at a low frame rate.
Yeah, it is. And so we won't comment on the game. There might be a patch, there might be a performance update. So obviously we'll report back if I get feedback from the developers as well. Of course, I'll make sure to report that on this show as well, because the original game is on the official Oculus store. So presumably that doesn't run like this, but I've not played that one. I did play it on Steam. I played the original one on Steam, and
same.
Yeah. Okay, so we can get on to this new VR headset that has been announced. This was a bit of a surprise. We didn't know about this until about a week ago, I don't think. I think MRTV, Sebastian, teased this on their last episode of the Next Dimension podcast. And then we got an announcement earlier on, or when was it? Yesterday or Sunday, I think. But this is the DPVR E4 PC VR headset. So this is a manufacturer in Shanghai who have made a few other VR headsets in the past, but sort of lower spec. This is a Steam VR headset. It's got a cable, HDMI cable, but it's got inside-out tracking. It has the same resolution as a Quest 2, single display, same as the Quest 2, but fixed IPD. And it's not a standalone headset. That's the first thing. It's probably the first thing to mention, because a lot of people will probably assume at this point that a lot of headsets that are coming out are standalone but can be connected. This is not that. This is a dedicated Steam VR PC VR headset. So that's that. So it's going to be released for $549. You can get an early bird price of $499, 120 hertz refresh rate. It uses Fresnel lenses, although, so like the form factor, it's not as we used to with some of the other VR headsets that are coming out lately. It doesn't use pancake lenses, so the form factor is probably slightly larger, although it does seem to boast the lightest and smallest form factor PC VR headset with Fresnel lenses. So I think it's something like 280 grams without the head strap, which is the lightest one. But it's got a flip up display as well. Inside out tracking, and it says, so the thing that people are sort of going on about at the moment is the fact that it says it has human eye level field of view, but then it says 114 or 116 degrees, I think it does on the spec sheet. So some people are questioning that part of it, but whatever. Anyway,
marketing.
So I've wrote down in the notes. There's not too much to get excited about on this one, although maybe there is. It doesn't look like something that I really want to pick up necessarily, unless it gets really positive reviews, and maybe if there's places where we can try this. I think that's a big thing, honestly. No matter what the spec sheet is on pretty much any VR headset, I need to try it before I'm going to commit to it at this point, I think, because there's so many headsets that I've tried that just don't stack up to what the spec sheets say in terms of user experience. But what did you think of this, Rog?
I mean, it'd be interesting to see what people think of it. Apparently, it's been shown off in Rotterdam this week at the VR Days conference exhibition. What's going off over there? And I think there's Gamertag, Mike, and a few others are going there. So maybe they'll get some hands-on time with it.
Great, that'd be good, because I don't know. Yeah, that's the big thing. If we can get some hands-on impressions from those people, I think Sebastian MRTV is getting one to sort of have some hands on as well. I don't know if it's there or not, but
right. But apparently there's a launch event in China next month for it as well, where they're supposed to be revealing all the full specifications and stuff. So more info then.
Yeah, the big thing for me, I think, with this one, if it had pancake lenses and had like a smaller form factor, it would make me more interested in it at this point.
It'd be tempting, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, it would. At that point, I think I would be, but it's not like, I think it could go either way, honestly. Maybe it is something that I eventually pick up. I don't know, but we'll get more information on that. We got this announcement, or sort of pre-announcement, I suppose, yesterday. So not a lot of info. Okay, well, we can get on to a little special topic. This is really based on some of your experiences, isn't it, Rog? The app trials versus refunds discussion.
Yes, and my half an hour online with Meta Live chat support.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you know now, you can, not all games, and it's a limited selection, but some games, some apps have trials on the Quest Store, so you can try something out without having to bother buying it and then refunding it. Well, that's the idea anyway. And some of these last from sort of 15-minute trials to like half an hour, or at least the ones I've seen. And it sort of seems to be a good idea. I mean, when I bought Rez, I downloaded a trial, played it, thought just to make sure it wasn't like a frame rate sort of problem game. And yeah, it ran okay, it ran fine. Although Rez Infinite is a bit of a dodgy one in the fact I'm pretty sure on pretty much every system, no matter what you play it on, the game seems to be locked at 60 hertz. And again, it's another one of these things that I can sort of slightly overlook. It's a bit strange. If you look for it, it's not perfectly fluid. But anyway, off topic. The problem was I downloaded the trial version of Yuki, which I've not played before. Played through it. I thought, yeah, actually, I like this, but it wasn't on sale. So finished my time with the demo. Thought, I'll see if anybody's got a referral code. And again, Sean from Rendered Reality, the man with the codes, he had a referral code. So I thought, I'll pick it up. Wouldn't let me. For some reason, their referral system, because I've downloaded and played the trial version, their system now thinks that game is on my account. Therefore, the referral system won't let me buy it because it thinks I already own it. It's just like, what? Yeah. Excuse me. So I got in touch with Meta Support, and it did take me a while to sort of like get across the problem I was having, and they asked me to try buying it on my phone in the headset via a browser. And I thought, this is not the problem, but I'll do it anyway.
Yeah.
I went through all that and I said, no, look, the problem is your system thinks I own this game, and I don't own this game, so I can't use referral. And it's only a 15 quid game, but, knocks it down to 11 quid, and the person referring it gets $5. So it's like, well, I want to do that. It just would not let me. They couldn't resolve the issue because obviously tech support person's got no control over how Meta's back-end systems work. But they were nice enough to throw me a $5 in credit, which would cover the discount that I couldn't actually get. But even though after all that, it's like, nah, I'll wait for it to be on sale now. I've had enough of that.
Yeah. So it just brings up this overall discussion of like with the trial system, you almost feel like the refund system would benefit you in some ways because you get longer.
Yep.
Generally with the apps, but
this is the thing.
But also, I mean, it means that you're not at risk of being excluded from the referral system as well, isn't it?
Why use a trial version of a game that gives you, like, say, I think Rez gave you 30 minutes. I think Yuki gave you 15 minutes. It might have been the other way around. I can't remember. Why bother doing that to then not be able to use a referral code and get a few quid off, when you can just buy the game, try it for up to 2 hours. Then if you like it, use somebody's referral code, which benefits you and the person giving you the code. The trial system's pointless. Just buy the game. If you don't like it, refund it.
The only thing with that, I suppose, because Steam do this, where they've got the refund system after 2 hours, 14 days, you can, within that period, then you can refund it. But I think if you refund too many in one go, then they maybe contact you. I don't know if Oculus or Meta have that same system or not, to be honest. I've only refunded a couple of games ever on Oculus. So
I don't know how many I've refunded. I mean, over the lifetime of my Quest, it must be coming up to 8 or 9, maybe 10. I'm not entirely sure. But, I don't sort of like get a game, try it, refund it, get a game, try it, refund it, etc. It's every now and again.
Yeah.
And I've never had a refund refused, I don't think.
No, it's just a weird system. When I think, to be honest, when you first mentioned this to me, I was like, it's got to be a bug. Like they just need to sort this out in their system, and that's got to be what it is now, isn't it? It's not like they must have meant that this be the case, but it does make sense from what you're describing. Like when you have a trial, you download the game onto your headset, and then it thinks that you own it. And also it's a bit like when you do on PlayStation as well, if you, at least on my PS4, if you do like one of these demos and or back in the day when this feature was first released, I played a game with my nephew where he owned the game, but I could go in co-op with him. So like Far Cry 4, we went in together. I didn't own Far Cry 4, but you can have this thing where you can do co-op on for a certain period of time or something like that. I forget this is years ago when we first did this. But from that point on, Far Cry 4 would appear in my library, and I couldn't remove it. I didn't own the game. I couldn't download the game. I couldn't play it. So it almost seems like it felt like I owned the game in sort of a manner of speaking, and shown it in my library. It didn't have any special features. So I don't know if there's this bug in the system where they just need to sort that out, I suppose.
I think the problem is it sort of seems to be working like, do you remember the old shareware games back in the day? It seems to be the same problem as this, in the fact that it's not a different download. It's the same download. The only difference is if you buy it, it unlocks the full game. So as far as their system is concerned, once you've downloaded that trial, it's effectively, you've downloaded the full game. The only difference is, maybe it's the exe file, maybe it's a key file it unlocks to say, no, this is now the full version. That's the problem they've got. It cannot differentiate between the trial version and the full version of the game.
Right, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so it's just something they need to sort out, basically. That's all it comes down to, I suppose. Okay, and the next thing we wanted to get into as well is the Lynx R1. So the pre-order price is now shown on the website. So for this one, I'm just looking at the website now. So we've got the standard edition, which is going to be $849. So the Kickstarter backed version of this, I think, was $499. And so this is quite a hefty increase, which we're already semi-aware of because Stan at Lynx had already said that they would be increasing the price of the pre-orders based on sort of component shortages and just the, what's happening in global economy and stuff.
Yeah.
So this price is $849 for the standard edition, which is actually a little bit higher than I was expecting. What did you think of this, Rog?
Yeah, it's a bit of a shock. I had one of those moments of, should I have backed the Kickstarter, sort of, regret type things. But at this price, it's definitely not going to be a purchase for me.
No, it's a little bit too much. But then again, I think they've done pretty well on the Kickstarter. They're also doing quite well in terms of getting other investment from, other companies, educational and business-based orders and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So then you've got the enterprise version, which is $1,299, and this is it's the same headset. You just get extra dedicated support with that as well. Now, Stan is going to be doing an update, and I got this information, I think it was on the Rendered Reality Discord yet again. Artful drew my attention to this, that Stan is going to be giving an update. I think there are a few people that are a little bit annoyed at the moment with the way this is going, so it's probably fair to mention that, because the problem is, there was the controller issue, which we mentioned a few episodes ago, where they basically delayed the controllers by a year, pretty much. And they didn't really inform Kickstarter backers via an email or anything like that. They just had something on their website, which, in my opinion, it's not the best practice to do that. So I think people are just having a little bit of a problem with their communication at the moment, and this is also because supposedly they did hire somebody to deal with all of this communication with the Kickstarter backers, just general people that are interested in it as well. And I don't know who that person is. We've not seen them, but we are getting another update from Stan tomorrow, which is Wednesday this week. So hopefully we'll get a bit more clarification on this. I don't really mind about this price, to be honest. It's a little bit more than I was expecting, but I don't really mind about it because the fact is, this is probably going up against the Quest Pro, and it makes sense that they are going to have a price that makes it more in line with what the Quest Pro is doing. I think the difficulty is if you didn't back it on Kickstarter and you were expecting to pick this up as a Quest 2 competitor, it's really not that anymore. I think this places it in a completely different category, which in my opinion it always was anyway. So I think that's just the difficulty that they're going to have to deal with in terms of this price point. Because if you remember, when this was first announced, it was a situation where people were talking about it as being a Quest 2 competitor. $849 is no longer a Quest 2 competitor. It's in its own bracket, more in line with a Quest Pro, which in my opinion is where it probably should sit anyway. But we'll see what this is like. I've tried an early version of it, but I just want to get my hands on this thing now. I can understand the frustration from people about this product and the lack of communication, because historically Lynx have actually been very good. They've been given really good updates over the months, but it just seems lately they're falling behind a little bit with that, and that's where the frustration comes in, especially when there are delays involved with this stuff. The Kickstarter units are still not going out. We're at the end of November now. So, presumably we'll get more information on that tomorrow when Stan gives that update. You got any thoughts on this, Rog?
No, it's just, like you say, it's not a good look, especially when there's supposed to be somebody there dealing with all this. Dealing with the communication side of things. Like you say earlier on, they were really open. They answered questions, they told you what you needed to know, but recently it's been a bit, well, should we say hit and miss, to say the least.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it, they're getting close to release. It's got to be a horrifically busy, hectic time for them. But at the same time, they can't just sort of ignore the community.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think the way things are, they're trying to get these units out. There's got to be a lot to deal with it in terms of... You see, the thing is, what people are going to say is either I'm being too sympathetic towards them and I'm not being harsh enough on them, or they're saying that I'm being too harsh. It's a difficult position because I've been to those offices and they basically just allowed us to see everything. There were a few things like the circuit boards we weren't allowed to take photos of, because obviously that's their IP and stuff. They need to deal with that themselves. But pretty much everything else, they were open. The units were working in a very rudimentary fashion. So I know they're not like this is not a scam company or anything like that. So, and I don't think anybody is really suggesting that at all. I just think that the communication at this time when they're getting so close to launch, they just need to keep on top of that. That's all. I think from my point of view, that's the way it looks to me. They're just so busy with other stuff. For a company that only has a few people, they've got about 15 people or something like that. And I think they're hiring all the time as well, but they've got a lot to deal with at this time. So I think that it's fair just to give them a little bit of a break. But at the same time, we do want our units, don't we? So
yeah, I mean, at this point, they're pretty much in crunch mode trying to get this thing released. So yeah, you're right. There's got to be an understanding there. But at the same time, even if you're not talking to everybody as much as you were near the beginning, throw us a few breadcrumbs every now and again.
Yeah, and as well, like Kickstarter. To me, I've not backed a lot of stuff on Kickstarter, so I think this is probably like the third thing I've ever backed on Kickstarter. And to me, it just seems like basically no matter what they say, add 6 months on, add a year on, really.
Yeah.
Because that just seems to be what happens. I mean, it's like that your, what was it, the Tilt 5? How delayed was that? How long was that before?
Oh, blimey. I can't even remember now. It was, I mean, that was a good couple of years, back to a good couple of years before we actually got hold of the thing.
Yeah.
But then there was a whole COVID thing to deal with. So I mean, everything got delayed regardless.
Yes.
But my mindset is it's not very often to back hardware on Kickstarter. But I've definitely got the mindset of you will not get your product when they say you'll get your product. It's going to be a year after that. Yeah, easily.
Even keeping COVID out of it, even without that, I think a lot of the products, the hardware that has been on Kickstarter, it's always been, generally not every single product, of course, but a lot of them are delayed. And like the Pimax and all of these things, they just seems to, a lot of people just seem to underestimate, it seems, because they said originally, I'm pretty sure they said they were hoping to get the first units delivered back in April.
Yeah.
Even me, I didn't know anything. I knew a fraction of what they knew about it, but even I was thinking that seems pretty optimistic, to be honest.
Yeah.
So we'll keep an eye on that, and hopefully the update will reveal more on Wednesday. Again, I'm still a big believer in the Lynx R1, and hopefully it'll deliver once it arrives. Okay, so this is one that we only heard about just recently, just before recording, really. This is one that we added on, and this is the Sony Mocopi 6 wearable trackers. Do you have any information on this, Roger?
Not a lot. I mean, a lot of the sort of news sites were just reporting this today, and basically they're wearable trackers. 2 for your wrists, 2 for your feet. I think there's a hip one, and then there's one for your head as well. And they're basically, by the sound of it, it connects to a smartphone and records all the tracking information. So it's basically going to be a very cheap way of doing motion capture. They're saying it's going to be 49,500 yen, which today translates to about £300 or $360. So for somebody like a small indie studio who needs, a good cheap motion capture solution, this could be a real deal.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I've not looked into this, so I can't really comment on it. But yeah, I mean, people want this kind of full body thing, don't they? So it's definitely something that people are interested in. I've not really got a lot to say on it. It's not something I really follow too much, this full body tracking thing. Were you ever tempted, those Vive trackers and stuff like that? I suppose, did you have a Steam VR headset ever?
I mean, I had an Index for a short time.
Oh, yes, you did, yeah,
no,
that's right.
But no, I mean, the whole... I think it's people who are into VR chat, I think that's your market right there. And bizarrely, the advertisement shows you... a guy running around and dancing around wearing these trackers, puppeteering like an anime, a Japanese anime sort of girl. And I must admit, as soon as I saw this, I thought, I wonder if Bradley's tried to get his pre-order in yet. And he actually, and I looked on Twitter, and his comment was, "Oh, Sony know what men want."
Yeah. Yeah, he'll be first in line for this kind of stuff. I don't know. Do you know exactly how it works, this thing? I don't.
There's not a lot of information. Basically, it's records the information via a smartphone app. So I don't know how that's going to tie in for using it with something like VR chat or something. But there is an SDK on the way. Okay. So I think we'll be getting more information in the next few months. I think it is only a Japanese release though initially. I don't think they've announced it in the West. So. I don't know how long it's going to be before it turns up over here.
Right.
Okay. My only thought was, and again, a few other people pointed out, as well, this seems an ideal sort of thing to use with PSVR 2. But then again, it depends on what they're going to have in the way of social apps. If they bring out like a new version of PlayStation at home, and then you could have a fully tracked avatar, I think there'd be a lot of people who would be into it for that. But saying that, maybe they could bring out a cheaper version because in VR you've already got a tracked headset, your head's tracked, your hands are tracked. Maybe they could bring out like a 3-piece solution where 1 for your waist, 2 for your feet at a lower price.
Yeah,
who knows?
Yeah, I mean, all of these technologies that they're working on, they're just staying in line with the way the industry is going, I suppose. And this might not necessarily be directly related to like the PSVR 2 or anything like that at the moment, but. It's all related technologies, isn't it? So
definitely, but I mean, compared to something, I don't know how much the Vive trackers go for, but they weren't particularly cheap, were they? I can't remember.
Oh no, they were. I can't remember now. I think they're about £100 each, something like that.
Something like. I mean, this is like £300 for an entire setup of 6 trackers, and they're no bigger than a wristwatch.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, so because they're using the IMUs in these, and what is there an external tracking? I don't know if you mentioned that. Sorry,
No, I've absolutely no idea. Not from what I can tell.
Yeah, that's the thing that concerns me a little bit. But I don't understand how they can do all of this based just off of IMUs in there. But it's
how do they cope with any drift or anything? There must be a solution.
Yeah, there must. I mean, I guess if they're all calibrated at the start, they're just relying on all the sensors together that are communicating between each other to give like a best guess at everything, I suppose. But I don't know.
maybe they're aware of where they are in relation to each other, and that's all that really matters.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, that was the big thing with the Steam VR trackers, the Vive trackers. They were obviously tracked by external sensors, so they were accurate from that point of view. But this literally just broke before the show, so we need to get more information on this as well.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty much it for this episode. If things have been slightly different, the reason is I'm doing all the videos as we record at the moment, so there might be a couple of mistakes. Also, my webcam, which I'm not even using, it's just plugged in, just went crazy halfway through, and it was disconnecting, and it was messing everything up. So we might have to deal with that as well. But hopefully, we're just trying to streamline the editing process for the video version of this podcast in order to make it so it releases closer to when the audio one goes up. But that's all behind the scenes stuff. Nobody's really interested in that. But Rog, is there anything you wanted to end on before we finish the show?
Final shout out for this coming Saturday, December the 3rd, in Leicester at the Retro Computer Museum. A few of us are meeting up there. Apart from ourselves, I think we have confirmed Days Netic, Mac in VR, Paradise Decay, and was there somebody else? I can't remember.
Okay.
So it should be at least 5 of us there anyway. But yeah, if anybody else wants to come along and meet up with us, £12 for the day. We'll probably be there from round about noonish onwards. Go for it.
I think I'll be arriving around 1:30 p.m, but there's loads of people around anyway, so you won't have shortage, and everyone's pretty friendly there. Even if I for the first few years I just went on my own to those kind of events till I invited Rog. How did that happen? Did I invite you down that time?
Yeah, you did. You mentioned that you were going along to it, and you said, why don't you come along? So yeah, I jumped on the train for that one.
Yeah, so I went for like about 2 years just on my own, and just sort of chatted to the people that were there. I didn't really know anyone, but they're all friendly, and if you like retro gaming anyway, you'll have plenty of people to talk to. But yeah, we'll be there, and we'd love to see you and have a chat about VR and retro stuff.
Definitely.
Okay, yeah, thank you for listening to this episode and watching on YouTube. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, and in fact, I've not even told you this, Rog, I think that will be the last one of the year because I'm going away over Christmas, so I won't have time to do another show after that one. But we'll organise that, and we'll try to make it a good episode next time. But thank you once again. Please like, subscribe, do all of that. Give us a review on the audio podcast platforms, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, everyone.